Hi everyone. I think most of you know my name by now, but in case not, I'm Katie. I work for BITS as a program associate, and I've talked to most of you already and kind of helped coordinate travel and stuff. But I also kind of manage the Catalyst program, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but if any of you have questions about that, you can come to me. I'll be talking right now about BITS preprints and preprints in general. And for the roadmap, kind of the motivating issues that Preprints tries to solve. There are a few of them, but publication bias is one. Access to papers and materials, as well as meta-analysis if you're trying to access literature. So in terms of where this fits in the workflow, preprints and the kind of access side of preprints fits into the dissemination side of research. So why do we do preprints? So there are two big problems kind of on the publishing and dissemination side of research. The file drawer problem, which I'll talk about a little bit in the next slide. So there are barriers to publication in high impact journals, as many of you may have experienced already. And there are also challenges with formal publications. So time for peer review and publication can take a long time. And it can be costly to publish, especially if you want to publish in an open access journal. And the cost of accessing published literature can be difficult, especially if you're working or studying at an institution that doesn't necessarily have the subscriptions. So there are paywalls. And I don't want to get too much into the file drawer problem. I think Robbie's going to be talking a little bit about publication bias later today, but why don't we publish rigorous studies or publishable studies? Just curious, has anyone here ever tried to publish something that they thought was publishable but wasn't able to get it published in a journal? Just like maybe a show of hands. Definitely quite a few of you. So Robert Rosenthal, a psychologist who kind of brought our attention to the file drawer problem, in one of his papers talking about it, he said, for any given research area, one cannot tell how many studies have been conducted but never reported. The extreme view of the file drawer problem is that journals are filled with the 5% of the studies that show type 1 errors or false positives, while the file drawers are filled with the 95% of the studies that show non-significant results. So that's publication bias, but there are other reasons that studies go unpublished. Maybe findings or the methods used in the research aren't innovative enough according to the journal. The review process, like I said earlier, it can be very long and cumbersome. And it can be difficult to find a relevant journal. In the case of BITS preprints, we focus on meta-research. There aren't many journals right now that focus on that. And sometimes journals want to focus on these hot topics. What is everyone else talking about? And if your study doesn't necessarily fit into that, it can be difficult to get published. Access, I think most of us understand why we want to access literature, especially when the public has paid, at least in part, for some of this research. It should be accessible, many think, to the public. So BITS preprints, or sorry, not BITS preprints, preprints in general was kind of inspired by Archive. Does anyone know what Archive is? Which was a platform where physicists and mathematicians, I believe, could store in a repository proofs. So preprints came out of that, and on the OSF, the Open Science Framework, which is run by the Center for Open Science, they have a platform where you can search aggregated preprint services, and I'll go over a little bit in the next slide, actually, all the different kinds of services. But currently there are over 2 million that you can find, and this URL right here at the bottom is where you'll be able to find all of them. So BITS is just one of these. I think there's quite a few different services, but SocArchive, that's a sociology service. SciArchive, many of you might already know, psychology, engineering, agriculture, law, really any discipline that you're interested in, you're going to be able to find a preprint service for it, and the OSF will let you search across all of those. So what can be posted on preprints? Working papers, if you're ready to share it, but not necessarily ready to publish. And yes, many journals, though not all, will let you submit for peer review later on. Preprints when you're ready to publish, but hasn't been published yet. So and also most journals will let you submit a pre-publication posting. And then post-print, so if your paper's already been accepted by a journal or if it's already been published, many journals will let you post it to a preprint service so that other people can access it. Those are things maybe you want to keep in mind when you're selecting a journal or when you're trying to decide whether or not to post to preprints. And BITS preprints specifically, we focus on interdisciplinary meta-research. So I mentioned earlier that it can be very difficult to find a journal that might want to focus on that. So much of the work that meta-researchers do doesn't fit into one discipline. Some of it does, but much of it doesn't. And interdisciplinary work is pretty valuable, especially when you're thinking in the context of policymaking or practitioners, if you're a development practitioner, public health practitioner, clinical science, and other decision makers. So this is a list. It's not exhaustive, but it's hard to fit all of it on one slide. A list of the meta-research topics that BITS focuses on in preprints. Most of it has to do with researcher behavior. So researcher bias, publication bias, which is the other side, p-hacking and other scientific misconduct, meta-analytic methods, operationalizing transparency and reproducibility, tools, journal practices, etc. And so this is kind of just a screenshot of what it looks like. I'll kind of demo it a little bit in a second, but just wanted to highlight that it's free to publish, free to access what's already up there, and you can also cite and easily share anything that's already published on preprints. So in a nutshell, what BITS focuses on BITS preprints, developing innovative methods to improve transparency and credibility, developing new tools and approaches for meta-analysis, studying researcher practices, norms, and strategies to promote open science, and learning how to institutionalize and scale up transparency and reproducibility. So let's see if I can show you guys a little bit about how it works. Let's go here. So this is the first page you'll, Do you know how to mirror this? Do you know how to?
Slide it.
Oh.
You want to be showing? Yes.
There we go. Is that all the way? It's a little bit cut off, but I think you kind of get the idea. This is what the BITS preprint section of the platform looks like, and if you scroll down here, you can click on a field that you're interested in. So we mostly focus on social and behavioral sciences. Oh, it's kind of cut off a little bit. Do you know if there's a way to like zoom out? Is that really all? Oh, okay. It's hard to see. That's okay. Can you guys see this? You can also, it's pretty easy to access on your computers, and if you need help, I can show it to you later individually. But this is a list of all the preprints we currently have. We actually have a few faculty here of preprints. So Rachel Meager, who talked yesterday, I think she actually spoke about this particular paper about the microcredit literature. That's up there. Robbie Van Aert is also on here. And the nice thing about preprints is if you access a paper, you can also access the OSF page that it's connected to. So the paper is right here. This is a paper that Gabriel Lenz and Alexander Son from Berkeley, it's a working paper by them, and they are talking about selecting covariates to include in their statistical models in order to achieve statistical significance. And it's kind of, this one's kind of blown up a little bit. It's hard to see, but there's over 900 downloads. You would normally see it like right here. So you can see how many people are accessing your preprint. You have a digital object identifier, you got a license, tags, so it's easily searchable, different ways to cite, and then, I think this is the button, it would say visit OSF project page. So you click on that, this is their project page. So if you're interested in the kind of, the other materials that are associated with it, you can see their pre-analysis plan. If their code or data is posted there too, you'll be able to access that. So pretty easy to use. And I think I'll go back to the slides. And one more selfish but also important motivation for using preprints, citations and visibility. So this is actually from a paper that's right now on arXiv, which is the physics preprint service. Talking about citations, so the green line up here are papers that have been submitted to arXiv. The red line is papers that have not been submitted. So citations already start before publication, because you can start citing a preprint even before it's been accepted to a journal. And they are much higher after the fact as well. So that's also nice. And then I'll just leave, I'll end with this. So this is the URL for BITS preprints. If you're interested in setting up your own service, you can contact the Center for Open Science, and they also have a really easy to use webpage there as well. And if you want to submit a preprint to BITS, then you can just contact us, Kelsey or I, or just this UC BITS at berkeley.edu. And we're mostly focusing on meta research and kind of the things that we've been talking about the past few days. I think you guys kind of get a good idea of what BITS is all about by now. There is, I think, Caitlin, you said you were on the, what was it, like a working group for preprints? So maybe you might have more specific information if someone wants to set up a preprint service. You can talk to Caitlin. If you're interested more in BITS, then you can talk to Kelsey or I. But yeah, anyone have any questions? Yeah.
How does this sort of interact with the peer review process? So for example, like double-blind peer review, a preprint of a paper that has your name on it.
I think that's a question I would defer to Caitlin on. We were just talking about that this morning. Do you want to?
It's the same question that keeps popping up. In my discussions, I actually don't know the answer to that. My own personal opinion is that someone probably has to be kind of really motivated to seek out the preprint. Like I guess if you get, as a reviewer, the paper, like you have to actively search the title in the archive to find it. And so, I mean, you can't really do anything about that, I guess. So I'm not sure. So I don't know. That's just something that's one of the limitations of pre-publication preprints that needs to be actively addressed, especially in the context of double-blind.
What discipline are you in? Economists don't care. Like, go on tour with papers, and like everyone knows who's written every paper for like 3 years before it's actually out. Obviously, that's a argument. That's not.
I personally don't care.
But to add to economics case, so there's a closed system of preprints, the NPR working papers, and those are preprints, limited access to publish, but that service right now is the #1 cited platform in economics. So yeah, the code exists very well, and that speaks, that gives hope to the world of preprints.
Yeah.
When you submit, do you have to inform the journal that you have a preprint out there? Or?
I think generally it's good practice. I'm not sure if there's a specific requirement, but yeah, probably.
I never do it, and
No?
I see other people do it either. So
Okay.
In some fields, like physics and statistics, it's even common courtesy in a way to provide preprint before you submit somewhere.
Hmm.
And I've never had only very recently did I have an editor complain about it. But I always do it, and I've never had an issue with that.
Okay. Thomas?
Yeah, there's probably a caveat to that, which is some of the like general science journals, including Science and Nature and like the PNAS as well, will prohibit you from having any kind of anything about the research online before it's published through them, which means before it goes through their peer review process, which creates some like weird incentives for regarding transparency. But that is something to be aware of.
Yeah.
Like, I think the issue is more about how new is the actual finding. So I've seen,
Mm.
I've heard that be more of like a complaint than the actual blind review process. So
Yeah, go ahead.
For those of us who are in disciplines who don't have norms that are conducive to transparency and open types of research, is there a way for us to submit something that signals that we have a preprint but it cannot be accessed? So is there something that we can like send into bits and be like, look, it's here, but because of the fact that there are people in X discipline or Y discipline who are actively will try to find the paper beforehand in order to influence like peer review process. Is there a way to signal that it's here, it's embargoed, but it's actually out there, but you can't see it until afterwards? So
I'm not sure about preprints. I know you can definitely do that with a registration and a pre-analysis plan. Does anyone know if you can do that with a preprint? I think probably not.
That just upload it post acceptance. So you can choose when you want to do it. So, like so far I've only done post acceptance, just because that's my timeline. But one of the benefits of posting it early, also depending on the stage, is that you can get feedback. And so that's if you wanted to post it just to like kick it in, then I would say just posted it till you're ready to share.
Yeah.
If you post this, if you post your paper after it's published, doesn't that have some like weird kind of copyright issues? Given the fact that our journal system is like really weird and whack right now.
I think Sean wants to answer that.
This is the comment I was gonna have, because do you have the internet?
Yeah.
Can you Google Sherpa Romeo?
Oh, yeah. We were just talking about that
Because
yesterday.
I've invoked numerous times to put my smart thing up on bit preprints, and I haven't done it yet, so
Sick.
don't feel like you're bad for not doing it. But one of the concerns is in a lot of the journals I was targeting or thinking about, I wasn't sure what the policies were about preprints, postprints, etc. So a useful site is this thing called Sherpa Romeo, and it's run by some group in the UK. I can't remember whom.
This one?
Yeah. So someone give me a journal title.
Philosophy of science.
Philosophy of Science. Let's see if that's in there when it loads up. But you essentially, if you think in advance of the journals you might want to submit a paper to, so like Reach School I think I'll get into, Safety School kind of thing. I don't know how common that is of a approach for applying for like undergrad or grad school. Similarly with journals, you go to this bar that you can't see right now in here, but it's a pretty intuitive search bar. If it's not the exact title, you might want to do contains. Oh,
I'm not sure if I'm typing
either.
it correctly.
Yeah, see if you can hit contains. And
And
essentially what they've done is try to find almost every journal that they can and go through their publishing policies and color code it to say whether it's a place you can do both preprints and postprints, where you can do postprints only, preprints only, or nothing's formally supported. So it gives you that overall label for the journal, and then it goes more nuanced or detailed for each of those different things. So,
but I guess I could.
oh, you misspelled philosophy, that's why. Philosophy.
Let's try
Right, for
that.
Modern Family. Okay, no. You
Oh.
did it again.
Oh. There we
Okay.
go.
What was it called? Philosophy of Science?
There we
Boom.
go. You are green.
So it's a green journal.
Which means.
So click on Philosophy of Science. So it tells you you can archive a preprint, so pre-referring. You can archive a postprint, so it's the final draft they've accepted, but not typeset by the journal. So it's the thing that you submitted that got accepted. And then this one also, according to them, says that you can archive the PDF version, usually if you have some sort of CC BY license, so open access license. Now, I haven't used it all that much yet, so there is always the question of, are they right? And so then you can play that dance of whether you're going to trust this, and then submit and see if someone kicks a fuss, or ask in advance. I think that, I don't know, I take the approach of asking for forgiveness rather than permission, which can get you into trouble. And there's always to the point of what some of the folks in the back have said, there's the policy that a journal has, there's the procedures that they put in place to try and enforce that policy, and then there's the things that they actually do. Everyone's really overworked, so I think to EJ's point, how many times people actually check and then complain if some procedure's been hit is another question. We're getting into a murky ethical territory, but at the very least, you've got this, and the whole purpose of the site is this. So you could say, I checked this and it was good, and that's why I did it the way I did it. But this might be a useful resource when you have particular journals in mind to submit specific papers to.
Yeah.
Well, I have two questions. The first one is the silly one. Like, is it possible when you submit, for example, your like draft paper or whatever on preprint to after all say, well, I want to take it out from?
Yeah.
Is that possible?
Definitely. It's not. I mean, you're the one who owns the paper, so it's up to you what's done with it.
Okay, so it's gonna be there's gonna be a third question. Then the second question is about generally when you submit a paper to a journal, sometimes there are like some after peer reviews there are some questions. They say you have to change this and that, and then you have to improve the paper. So do you have to submit the newer one, like when you correct everything, when you review everything, you have to submit another paper, like, you know, on preprints in order to be fully transparent?
You don't. Well, if you wanted to be fully transparent, I would say yes. But again, it's up to you. It's your paper, and you can post newer versions if you like.
Well, then the third question about, I mean, linked to the answer you gave, like I can submit a paper on preprint and then I can take it out. So what's gonna be the benefit of putting after all this on preprint? Because for me, like the reason was like for transparency and trying to avoid some sort of like publication bias. So when I like submit a draft like on on preprint and then I just realize that there are things that are not good in the paper and then I take them out.
Well,
and I end up not publishing the paper.
Right. I mean, generally, if you want to be fully transparent, you would use version control and upload a new version instead of deleting and then resubmitting a completely new one. So I think that would be how you would approach that. And I think with BITS preprints, that would be something that we would try to enforce, I think. But again, it's your paper, so.
Yeah, but I mean, I was thinking that like maybe one thing could be like to somehow have a sort of signature saying that like this paper was like submitted once and then it has been taken out, because if I end up not publishing, we are not like solving the publication bias, because like I submitted it first and then people could, if this is not possible to make it private, people could get access to it, and then I end up like not publishing the paper because like the journal did not like end up publishing it, and then I take it out.
Right.
So
it doesn't necessarily, preprints doesn't replace journals and doesn't solve publication bias in journals. It just gives the scientific community access to papers that aren't in journals. So it kind of takes that approach. Satya, maybe one more question.
Last question.
Yeah, I wanted to come back to the issue of including these in systematic reviews or reviews. Is there an easy way to search these? Like, do you have to go to the individual archives? Or?
No, so if you go to, let's see, it's osf.com/ let me find it for you. It would be osf.io/preprints/discover. If you go there, then the search that you search it searches every preprint service that the OSF has access to. So you can just search basically the way that you would do a regular literature search, titles and keywords and that kind of thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so, but I imagine there are others that are out there other than OSF, or is that where all the preprint?
OSF just aggregates other preprint services. There are some that are housed by COS Share, but not everything is. I think Archive is its own thing, for example. Right? Yeah. Okay.
So we've got, you can ask that, but let's let everybody break for coffee now. Thank you, Katie.